Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be starting a new book called Waffles by MeiHalo. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is a Bungo Stray Dogs, Soukoku and Shin Soukoku fan fiction. High school AU, just a warning. And here is the summary. Time stopped right as he entered Atsushi's sight. They both looked at each other. They both looked at each other, and their eyes widened for a moment in time. The blooming cherry blossom trees blew harsher than before in the wind, pink petals flying past each other's faces, but that one not in one moment did their eyes get taken off of each other. None was superstitious, but at that moment their souls screamed fate. Yugai Academy, a prestigious high school that accepts people for its intelligence. The place itself is a castle. And the strangest thing is that his dorm mates, a strange three, a feisty redhead, a tall, teasing brunette, and a quiet boy who likes to read and paint tigers. There's this memory. It stuck with me for as long as I can remember. I was walking back home with my dad. We were talking about something, I can't quite remember. But while we were talking on and on, my eyes wandered and suddenly they met another's. A child like me, standing in an alleyway, his hands clenched around some dirty rag he wore, and blood was dripping onto the concrete. His eyes, though, that was the most unforgettable part. They looked motionless, but at the same time were bursting with emotions. If any were there, it would be anger, fear, and regret. I lost myself in a whirlpool of them, just them. I became terrified and quickly looked away. I remember that night I had a nightmare. It was scarier than anyone could ever imagine. In it, I found myself in a room with no windows or light. It was pitch black. I heard yelling of a man, seemingly in his 40s or 50s. He wasn't mad. He sounded happy about my pain. I screamed for help, but no one came. He made fun of me for it. He even made fun of me for it. Blood. There was blood all over the floor. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it and taste it. When I woke up, I screamed at the top of my lungs until they stung, and I broke into a coughing fit. My father rushed in to see me and comforted me until I fell back asleep. A lot of children in the orphanage were also there as they were woken up by as well. But no matter what, that nightmare has always made me think of that boy, that one boy whose face I can't remember. All I can remember is the true agony in his eyes. Chapter 1. Atsushi looked up at the tall arches and beautiful castle-like pillars that towered above him. He never really grew up in a wealthy family, so everyone was freaked out when they figured he'd been invited to a prestigious high school. The high school itself gave him a dorm. It had a dormitory, and it's a high school. Even the uniforms were made out of expensive red fabric, smooth checkered pants, and shiny ass shoes. Atsushi let out a shaky, deep breath. Here goes nothing, Atsushi whispered to himself as he tightly held onto his leather book bag and took his first steps into the school. It was full of people rushing up the large staircase as the bell rang. The ceiling was way up, so when people talked, it echoed through the entire school. Atsushi tried to navigate through the school, emphasis on tried. He couldn't find where his classroom was. Endless amounts of hallways with expensive carpets, statues, paintings, and lockers. He hung his head low as he rushed along the somewhat crowded hallways. Everyone was either talking or rushing through, so asking someone wouldn't be easy. He stopped when he ran into someone else. My apologies, Atsushi said, as he looked up to see the way taller man with short brown hair, crucifix earrings, and bandages across his hands and neck. Did the school even allow earrings like that? Atsushi thought as he stared at them. It's okay. You look lost? The brunette gave a light smile as he scratched his head. I'm looking for class 1A4. Oh, that's actually my class as well. Follow me. The brunette guided the other to the classroom, which wasn't actually that far away. Oh, by the way, I'm Dazai. Nice to meet you, Dazai said before he walked into the classroom. Late again, a silver-haired male, who was supposedly the teacher, said in a disciplining voice. Dazai just laughed it off. Atsushi walked in after Dazai to see a classroom full of many different people who gave off the strangest of auras. Hello, you must be our new student. Introduce yourself. The silver-haired man stepped aside. Atsushi smiled lightly at the male's kindness and stepped over to the chalkboard. He wrote down his name and bowed to the class. My name is Atsushi Nakajima. I hope we can become great friends with you all. I hope to become great friends with you all. Atsushi said as formally as he could, with his nervous smile. He was already a bit off track when he saw someone with their feet kicked up on their desk. Alright, take your seats. Take your seats. I'm your new teacher, Fukasawa Yukichi. The teacher said with a ghost of a smile. Atsushi smiled back and walked to the seat along next to a window. I'm just like a protagonist of an anime or something, Atsushi thought to himself. The class itself was hard. Atsushi could barely keep up with the level required. His hands had to keep up with his note-taking on stuff he didn't even know. Though the challenge was fun. Between the breaks of the sentence, in between breaks of sentences, he'd look over to see the other people in his class. Dazai wasn't even paying attention. This was really a class for elites, and as soon as the class was done, it was apparently time for lunch, which Dazai invited Atsushi to eat lunch with his friends. Before you go, Nakajima, Fukasawa pulled out something from the desk drawer. Atsushi looked over to the man. He was given an envelope with keys and a number on the outside. Your dorm keys. Oh, thank you. Atsushi gave a quick bow before running off with Dazai. So, which dorm do you have? Dazai asked as he peeked over the beige envelope with the fancy red wax ceiling on it that had the school's logo, which was a rose. I'm in dorm 52, Atsushi said as he read the note closely. Dazai gasped, which caught Atsushi's attention. That's mine and my friends, Dazai said cheerfully. Atsushi's smile grew. At least I'll be in a dorm with someone who seems at least relatively kind, Atsushi thought to himself in relief. But that relief was gone soon by a shout. Waste the bandages! That picture you sent me wasn't funny, a short redhead shouted. Atsushi looked over to the brunette, who was now laughing as he was being shaken back and forward from his collar. Atsushi laughed nervously. The redhead finally noticed the other and stopped. Who is he? The short one gave Atsushi a stare. He's my friend and our new roommate, Atsushi, Dazai said. So you're the new kid? The redhead looked at Atsushi for a moment. I'm Chuya Nakahara. Nice to meet you. The redhead gave a smirk as if he didn't just scream like a chihuahua at Dazai. He wore bandages all over his cheek, a bandage over his cheek, and his jacket was, instead of being red, was blue, which meant he was assigned to another class. Nice to meet you, Atsushi gave a bow. No need to be so formal, Chuya waved it off. Where's Akutagawa? Dazai asked as he looked around. Chuya sighed. Akutagawa, get over here. Stop being an emo. Chuya crossed his arms as he tapped his foot. Soon a man with white bangs and eyebrows and eyebrowless walked over. It was like for a moment time stopped right as he entered Atsushi's sight. They both looked at each other and their eyes widened for a moment in time. The blooming blossom trees blew harsher than before, with the wild pink petals flying past each other's faces, but not for one moment did their eyes get taken off of each other. None of them were superstitious, but at this moment, their souls screamed fate. Do you guys know each other? Chuya blinked at both of them as he waved a hand in front of their faces, catching their attention. No, Atsushi stammered with a nervous smile. He looked back to see the male who was to keep his observant. He looked back at the male who kept his observant and minimalism look to him, also a complex one. Like his emotions were being held back by something, Atsushi couldn't figure out what. I'm Atsushi Nakajima, Atsushi said with a bubbly tone. I'm Akutagawa, the other one responded flatly, coughing into his hand slightly. Nice to meet you, Akutagawa, Atsushi smiled at the male. Chuya joined the school recently as well, so I'm sure you two will be great friends. Though I'm not sure. Though be careful, he's so short you won't see him coming. Dazai snickered, only to get kicked in the stomach. Sure, take that back, Chuya growled. Were you guys friends before this? Atsushi noticed a strong relationship. We've known each other since kindergarten, Dazai said it between his struggles of pain from being kicked and hit. Chibi dear, I'm sorry. Chuya's face became bright red. I'm not that short. You're too tall, Chuya said said seriously before breaking out into laughter. Are they dating or something? The bell rang again, and at that moment, luckily Chuya had held a map with him, so he could give to Atsushi, which helped more than you could imagine. Seriously, the size of this school was the size of an actual castle. It's insane. Classes all eventually passed by, and Atsushi was seriously lucky to run into one of his roommates as soon as school let out. The only problem was that it was Ryanosuke, and Atsushi had become sure that Ryanosuke either 1, hated him, or 2, was just overly shy. But with the sinister glares he got during PE and math, he was sure it was hate. Akutagawa, do you mind showing me to my dorm? Atsushi said with a kind voice. The other stared at him until he was almost uncomfortable. Yeah, sure, he replied. It was a long walk and an awkward silence, and the silence eventually became unbearable. How did you get into the school? Atsushi asked, tilting his head over to look at Ryanosuke. Why does it matter to you? Ryanosuke responded coldly, coughing into his hand once again. Can I take a guess? Psychology? No. Writing? No. Atsushi thought more until an idea crossed his mind. He was sure of it. This time he was sure of it. Art? Ryanosuke stayed silent, and Atsushi took that as a yes. Art is great. When I was younger, I used to draw pictures of monsters. Atsushi used hand gestures to make out big, gnarly monsters. His words caught Ryanosuke's attention slightly. Why monsters? Because they're cool, aren't they? Atsushi laughed a bit at his own words. The silver-haired boy gave a small smile to the other, and for a moment, Ryanosuke gave into that smile, and Atsushi's expression turned into a small frown. Maybe it's because they were just like me. Ryanosuke took those words into consideration for a second. We're here, Ryanosuke said as his face averted to the room's door. He opened the door, and inside was a huge 2-story dorm. There's no way this could be a dorm, Atsushi stared in awe. The large chandelier, luxurious kitchen, and a beautiful living room. This was way out of his league. Welcome to your new dorm, Atsushi, Dazai said. Atsushi looked over to see Dazai sitting on the couch and watching random stuff on the big TV. Where's Chuya? Atsushi asked, his eyes starting around the room. He's gone up to get groceries. Also, your room's upstairs next to Ryanosuke's, Dazai said. Dazai went back to watching TV happily. Atsushi watched as Ryanosuke went to the kitchen to fix himself something. Atsushi walked up the stairs after sliding his shoes off and looked around. The staff had put his luggage in his room, so he knew which one was his. He really was next to Ryanosuke's room. The door was open slightly, and through the cracks he could see paintings of some sort, but he couldn't quite decipher it. Curious, he opened the door more, but not to see not one, not two, but 5 different paintings of tigers, all of which were in with black and white stripes, with their eyes were all blank. They had no colouring in them yet. "What are you doing?" An annoyed voice snapped behind Atsushi. He jumped, he jumped back, his breath hitching. I'm sorry," Atsushi stammered. "You should know better than to look into others' rooms like that," Ryanosuke said coldly, coughing into his hand a bit violently. He seemed mixed with embarrassment and, most of all, anger. "I'm so sorry, I was just curious. The paintings look great, though." Atsushi tried to make the situation better. "Don't do that again," Ryanosuke shoved past. Atsushi, Atsushi though, shoved past Atsushi, though it felt like he was being easy on him than he could have become. Atsushi made his way to his own room as he tried to ignore the obvious guilt that he felt. Well, it's obvious that he shouldn't have peeked into someone's room, but he didn't know they would feel so insecure about it. Upon walking into his room, it was huge. He gasped at the royalty feeling it gave off. He literally felt like a king living in a royal manor with other people. He hopped onto the bed and sunk into the mattress after tossing his bag off to the side. Looking up at the frame of the bed, at the framing of the bed, which, if he hung a blanket over, he could make a fort, and that in itself didn't sound half bad. He unbuttoned his red suit jacket halfway to relax. He wore a white button-up with a black tie underneath, the most fancy thing he's worn in a while. He eventually fell asleep, forgetting the large sum of homework he had to do. The day in itself was extremely exhausting, meeting Dazai, Chuya, and the strange one, Ryanosuke. Above all, he wasn't expecting to fall in love. Thank you all so much for making it through to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. That was the prologue and chapter 1 of Waffles. I'll be coming out with chapter 2 very soon, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye!